Hey, it's me, AP, and welcome to another edition of Awesome Cinema Memories, the show where I share my memories of the big screen, visiting it with you all. On this episode, I will be discussing The Dark Knight. So, The Dark Knight. First of all, I just want to talk about the story and just a bit about this trilogy, really, of Christopher Nolan movies. So, this is the second movie in the Batman trilogy by Christopher Nolan. And for me, it is the best movie in the trilogy. I never watched the Batman Begins movie, the first movie at the cinemas, first time round. It's a movie that I caught on DVD. It sort of just went under the radar for me at the cinemas. I think I knew about it, but I suppose it was before like the big boom of superhero movies. So, I mean, if a Batman movie was released around that time, for me personally, it wasn't a massive thing the way it would be now in 2020. If a Batman movie is released now, it is huge. But for me, back then, it didn't feel like a big of event like the way it is now. So, the story of The Dark Knight pits Batman versus the Joker. If you've never seen this movie before, I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen this movie. But the Joker is teased in the Batman Begins final scene. His card is shown with Jim Gordon to the Batman, and then he says he's going to look into it, and then basically the Dark Knight sets up with just like the Joker straight away, the villain of the piece. It features Two-Face, Harvey Dent as well, included in the story, and again, it's just the whole story is the battle of good versus evil, the Batman versus the Joker, the classic spin of Batman movies, and a classic story in my mind. So, my memories of seeing this at the cinema. Let me tell the story to you. I remember going to see this at a local Cineworld cinema. This is in the UK. We have a chain of cinemas called Cineworld, and I remember going to see it and just being so excited to see The Dark Knight. This movie was really hyped, I thought, and for many reasons. You know, it was the second movie. As I said, the boom in superhero movies was really just starting to ignite around this time. You had the death of Heath Ledger prior to the release of the movie, which got more hype for this movie as well. There was a lot of exciting eyes to be watching this. You know, you wanted to go and see this movie. The trailers looked amazing. All the promo material, all the TV spots, the posters, it looked intriguing. It looked something entertaining to see. And if you're a Batman fan, you know, it's Batman versus the Joker. We hadn't had a Joker since the last one, which was Jack Nicholson, and that was in 1989. So, nearly 20 years, I believe. So, that's a long time since we've seen a Joker. Plus, it was a completely different Joker. Heath Ledger's Joker was miles apart from what Jack Nicholson's Joker was, and the guy who played him in the original TV show, Romano, I forget his name, the guy who had the mustache. But yeah, he was a psychopath Joker. So I was really amped up to see this movie, and as I said, I really enjoyed Batman Begins when I watched it on DVD. It was egg, so I thought, yeah, let's go and see this one, let's go and see it. So I'm going to the Cineworld cinema. I went with my dad, and as I said, I was so amped up to see it. I was just really excited because I was like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And I heard talk prior to the other people watching it saying, oh, you got to see this bit, you got to see this bit. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be exciting. And so I went in the cinema, and straight away, this movie just hits you with the opening scene with the heist. I'm big into heist movies. One of my favourite movies is Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Val Kilmer, who is also a former Batman. But, Heat and The Dark Knight, they have, for me, a lot of like similarities in the tone. And I think it picks up mainly for me in this opening scene especially. Has a real like Heat feel, what I like about this film, the whole film, is the realism. I think the Batman Begins movie had it, but this doubles up on the realism. It feels like you could have a guy who's a millionaire, billionaire, dressed in a batsuit in the real world, and this is it. This is what it would look like. And you'd have a psychopath who's just completely nuts, and the Joker in the real world right now, and that would be it. The realism of this movie just really is something and what I love about this whole franchise of Christopher Nolan Batman movies, but this one especially, I feel it's in between The Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins, and it holds the most realism between all them movies for me. So, as I said, I went in the movie. The opening heist scene is amazing. The introduction of the Joker is phenomenal. I think it sets him up as just this really unique movie villain and just a complete psychopath as well. And, you know, he's got all these minions doing the bank job with him, and he's killing each one each time. And then he just throws in that little joke, and he's like, I'm going to kill the bus driver at the end. And then it was just the jokiness of him, but the psychopathness of him, which I love. And like I said, that opening scene just sets up the movie to be a great movie. And the whole movie for me, through all its twists and turns, with Batman sort of going on the side of good and bad in a way. You know, when Rachel Dawes is being kidnapped and Joker's in the cell, and Batman is just beating him down, and when he knows he's got to him, he knows it, and the Batman's just laying into him. You know, he's treading on that line of good and evil, and this is the whole movie. He sort of dwells on that story narrative of, like, you know, you sometimes, like, you die a hero. I forget that speech within the movie, or you live long enough to become the villain, from the Joker or from Harvey Dent it was. But it really does hit the marks with that story. And, you know, by the end of this movie, the Batman is the villain. And this leads on to, like, obviously the next movie after this. But the Batman starts this movie as the hero, and he really does end it as the villain. And it's a sacrifice he makes within the movie. But it's a brilliant sacrifice. It's one that he needs to do and he wants to do. So I come out the cinema after watching this movie, and I'm like, yes, this is the best superhero movie. This is the best movie I've ever watched. And to this day, I mean, the Dark Knight is just so... I get chills thinking about it. I always remember that memory of coming out of there and just saying to my dad, like, that was the best movie I've ever watched at the cinema. It just... I can watch it on DVD now, and I still think it's an amazing movie, but it was a movie that was made for the big screen. I think it was a great movie to watch on the big screen. If you didn't get the enjoyment, or you didn't get the experience at the time when this was released, to watch it on the big screen, honestly, I do feel like you've missed out, because it was such a great movie, and I really enjoyed it. It was just a big-hitting, big-time blockbuster movie, which I really thought was fantastic to watch on a giant screen. So, does this movie hold up the test of time? I've watched this more recently, and, you know, I've watched it over the years. It's 12 years on now from 2008, it's 2020 now. I still think this movie holds up. I mean, I don't like comparison, but I mean, even to, like, the more recent Batman movies, I think this is one that really holds the test of time, and I think it is something that can last forever. I mean, look, you go back to, like, 1989, as I said, with the two Michael Keaton Batman movies. I love them movies, but they are massively dated. Now, fair enough, it could go the same way, you know. It could be in 20 years' time, I watched The Dark Knight and Batman Begins and the whole trilogy, and it just doesn't live up. It just, you know, things have changed, you know, social media and the way we live our lives, and just things that were in tune with that time then will go out of tune. And I'm sure it will happen to a certain degree, but just the look of this movie, it just feels like it is something that will last for a long time for viewers, and viewers will always engage with this movie and enjoy the movie. And I think it really goes down to the realism, as I said. The realism of this movie really helps it get over with fans of Batman and just movie fans in general, because you don't necessarily have to be a big, like, comic book movie fan to enjoy this. I think it really does go in between the lines of, like, superhero and sort of like a hard crime sort of movie, which is great. So it can work for both sets of fans, for moviegoers all around. So for me, it definitely, for me, holds up 12 years later. For me, it does. And I would watch this movie every week. It was one of those movies I really enjoy. I don't watch it every week, but maybe that's something I should put into my diet of movies. Watching The Dark Knight every single week. So, what was the lasting impact on me from watching this movie? I think for me, and for a lot of people, it will be the Joker. Heath Ledger's performance in this movie was great. It was chilling. It was something completely fresh. You can have tons of different people. You've had Joaquin Phoenix, you've had Jared Leto doing the Joker since this, and for me, I don't think either of those lives up to what Heath Ledger did with that character. I thought it was just reinvented that character, and every movie that comes after this, every Batman movie, or every person that plays the Joker, or I think even any person who plays a character with them psychopathic tendencies, will always be compared to Heath Ledger's Joker. Because it was that good. And I don't think it was that good because he died prior to the release of the movie. I don't think it was anything to do with that. I think it was, if Heath Ledger was still alive now, I think everyone would still be going on about that character and saying how amazing it was and how great his performance was. Because apparently he spent like weeks or months in one hotel room just getting the voice and getting that character and really going into that zone, like that method acting style of acting. And I think he sold us all on it, and he sold us all that Joker was a genuine psychopath and probably one of the best villains in movie history. And you know what? That the Joker will always be the lasting impact on me from watching this movie. I think Batman is great, but it is the Joker's movie. This movie is the Joker's movie. You might as well just name this. You could rename this the Joker or Batman versus the Joker, because the Joker has such a significant impact within this movie. And for me, as a movie fan watching this movie at the cinema, Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker will go down in history as one of the best movie villains for me personally. Thank you very much for watching this video today. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Awesome Cinema Memories. Let me know your memories of watching The Dark Knight at the cinemas. Where did you watch it? Who did you watch it with? And what was your experience? How did you feel when you left the cinema? And when you were watching the movie, what was the feelings that were inside your stomach when you were watching this movie? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.